Nobody gets that today.
I know, because I was like, once we found it was actually there yesterday, we were like, score!
Right.
Because again, we need it because of what's going on.
Yes.
No one cared. No one cared.
This was
before
literally
the last 3 years.
I think Sankey joked about it in his intro on Monday. Like, yeah, there used to be the time where y'all would get together, hang out, and go to the beach. Now, I doubt there's a lot of beach time this week.
The media that does cover it's going, God, this has like become a thing.
Yeah.
I just want to go here and chill, man. Here in Destin.
Oh, yeah,
get a
boss.
tan.
I definitely need to go to Destin. The important things happening at the meeting. Oh, crap. No important things are happening at the meetings. I have to write about it.
It just sucks.
My computer's overheating in the sun. This isn't working.
I've only had one Corona in 3 days.
Yeah.
I'm not happy.
Feinbaum's got a sunburn on the top of his bald head.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
He's all burned.
Is it? You guys got a cream person that puts it on his head before the show starts?
Did I ever tell you this? I forget where I was working, and I had a friend of mine go to Bristol, Connecticut, to do the tour of ESPN.
Yeah.
And part of it in that time is they gave you a tour through the set of Sports Center where they're doing Sports Center, and they were actually doing a Sports Center at the time when they were doing the tour, and so they were looking down on the whole set and how they were doing it.
Yep.
They go to break, and this is when Berman was doing Sports Center, Chris Berman. And they go to break, and it was like a Daytona pit crew came out there because Berman had the spray on hair, and that stuff under hot lights, you know what it's doing, right?
It starts to melt.
It's melting.
Running down the back of his neck.
It's running down the back of his neck. So our boy Berman is doing Sports Center while he's got spray on hair running down the back of his neck. So obviously when he goes to break, there's squeegee in the back of his neck. They're giving him the spray on the top to replace it. They're wiping him down.
Got a pound of makake on his face.
They're fixing up the makeup. My buddy said it was like a Daytona pit crew came out there to fix old Berman up.
Yeah.
And then they're timing them like they're Daytona.
Sure.
They're seeing the best pit crew they can get.
Yep.
And so everybody takes off. Okay, clear. Coming back from break, and they all go running back, and then Berman's ready to do Sports Center again. Said it was hilarious.
I believe it.
How would you like to be sitting there and just knowing that your hair is melting down the back of your neck?
Yeah, you probably feel it too.
Oh, absolutely, you do. Ew. Anyway, so out of this today, we got a bunch of sound. We got Greg Sankey. Obviously, you did a nice job pulling the Sankey stuff. Good work, sir. Also, a few cuts from Kirby Smart, who was talking to Paul Feinbaum. Cut from Feinbaum himself about this college football playoff, the new world we're going into, another new world. We go into new worlds all the time in college athletics. About the model, which way is it going to go, what direction? Is there going to be automatic bids? Is there going to be, we're just going to go with, conference champions? You get the 5 conference champions and Notre Dame, obviously. And then everything else is just best records or, playoff committee rankings, whatever you're doing.
It's going to be complicated, whatever it is.
Because it's college football. Yeah. Nothing's ever easy. You and I were yipping about this morning, and I was talking about it yesterday. We don't want it easy in college football.
No, it's never been.
That's boring. We want conflict and drama and arguing, and that's what makes college football.
Even because again, everybody looks at things through nostalgic glasses, and I will admit we're in a mess of a situation right now. But even the quote unquote better ways of determining national championships. All right, we're going to let a bunch of writers from all over the country that likely aren't watching every team decide.
That was better, right?
Yeah. We're going to let this computer spit out an algorithm that is going to determine which teams are ranked above the others.
That, by the way, was manipulated by people who had...
By media polls, and those kind of things. Then it came to a committee, which, again, people in a room, you're going to have arguments, and there's going to be rights and going to be wrongs.
And everybody's so objective in the committee.
There's never been a perfect way to do this. There never will be a perfect way to do this.
Anybody that says this, man, I miss them good old days when the writers and the coaches picked it. Really? When you had split champions?
Yeah, there was like 5 different champions.
I mean, that's what you were, the Farmer's Almanac champion?
By the way, there's an episode of Split Zone Duo that came out last week. There's a guy that wrote a book about all the ridiculous national championship claims. Because Alabama has a couple.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this dude in his basement came up with a poll and they claimed it because they could. You know what I mean?
Reader's Digest national champion.
Take all national championships like pre-what? 1995, 6, whenever the BCS really got cooking, with a bit of a grain of salt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there has never been, and there never will be, because no one wants a perfect solution.
No.
That's going to be no fun.
Sure.
We want to be able to argue and disagree.
College football is the Jerry Springer of sports.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like, it's about, yes, at the end of the day, it's about the sport itself, but we love the debate. We love the argument that your team's not as good as mine because I play in a better conference than you, and there's no way you can prove your team is better than mine because you're never going to play in this conference.
My team beat your team, And my team beat that team that beat your team that beat that other team that my team beat too. So my team beat two teams that beat you, so my team's better than your team.
Are you familiar with the circle of suck?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, well, team A beat team B and team B beat team C. And like at the end of the day, we're like, hey, guess what? Texas State is actually the best team in college football.
I love doing that.
Because of that property of teams beating teams beating teams.
I love that. We sit there and do it like other markets I've done shows. We've actually done it to the point because it becomes so absurd. It's funny. It's a good time. And you always try to take the angle. It's
you
going to be
can't
so
argue
absurd.
with the numbers, the results.
Because you know what? If you go through the whole circle of suck, you're going to find that there is no doubt in anyone's mind that Montana State's a national champion.
Toledo is the best program in the country.
It's so funny. So, look, we're going to play some Sankey. And to me, and it won't be done because it makes too much sense, we'll go into what I think is the best way to do this, but it won't be done this way. Because, again, it's logical. And we won't do logical. Have you heard, and I was reading Stuart Mandel put a really interesting post up in The Athletic, and they're actually part of this conversation for 16 teams you think is easy, right, Tyler?
Should be.
One plays 16, two plays 15, three plays... Oh, no. We're going to take the top four because we're dying for... We love buys.
Yes, we do.
Buys are great.
Yep.
For some reason, we want to reward people with buys. You know what really buys do? Give you another week of playoffs.
They do. And yeah, it's either 2 or 4. I can't remember how many teams will get the bye. It's basically to give a value to conference championship games because they don't want those to go away because of the money they make in Atlanta and Charlotte and Indianapolis and all that kind of stuff. And also it prevents, because here's the thing, what college football has been able to do with the playoff and the 4 and now 12-team format, they never had games overlapping each other. You've been able to play one after another. And this past year, the opening round, you had 1 game on Friday, 3 on Saturday, boom, 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 boom. If you're playing 8 games in your first round, you're going to have games crossing over each other. They don't want that. They want to be able to have all eyes on 1 game at a time.
And plus, then you'll have this. Then you'll have, because we love it in college basketball, we love the play-in round.
Yes, the first 4.
And Stuart Mandel had a great joke. Because why don't we play the play-in round of college football in the gym in Dayton? Why not?
Yes.
Why not, right?
The first 4 legacy, yes. Let's get, I don't know, Indiana and SMU would play in whatever the name of that place is.
In Dayton.
Yeah.
It's just because you're going to take basically the bottom 4, 13, 14, 15, 16, let 13 play 16, 14 play 15, and 2 of them move on.
Is it still a 16-team playoff, or is that like, how do we constitute that?
Well, we still think the NCAA tournament is, we count the 4, all those play-in teams, right? The 8 play-in teams.
And we're still not going to give the higher seeds home games, even though I think they all want that.
Right.
What are we doing?
Well, we're trying to make it as illogical as possible. You understand this, right?
We are.
And you're right about the conference championship game. The only thing, because remember, the college football wants to keep the conference championship game. Why? It's tradition. No, it makes you money.
Yeah, it makes a lot of money.
You know what's even better, Tyler, than a conference championship game? Having 4 teams on that weekend fight it out for 2 college football playoff spots if you have automatic bids from your league.
Yeah,
that's even more fun than college championship.
That's another
games.
Idea, but are you going to play that game in Atlanta? Or they'll
find
Ole Miss
a way.
and South Carolina. Now you're playing for 4th. Like, is that work the same way? I don't know.
But again, this is all the stuff that's running through the heads of these people.
It is.
Because it all comes down to one thing. Hold it up.
Money.
That money, more than $1.
I don't think this will work in that machine downstairs. By the way,
I don't know what pocket that came out of.
It's yeah.
Do you have an iron?
I don't. I can put it on my laptop, and by the end of the show, it'll probably be flat.
Probably flat. That's like why used to go to the laundromat back in the old days.
It's the thing you have to you smooth it out on the edge of something,
and it still didn't go in that stupid
machine keeps spitting it out.
Spits it back out at you. Greg Sankey coming back, talking about the discussions about the future of the college football playoff and the automatic qualifiers. And I will just throw out what I think, and it's so simple and so logical, but it will not be done because simple and logical, that is like foreign to the world of college football. We'll get to that next. Halftime show. David Ayers punching the buttons. Tyler's here. Terry Ford going till 3 on the game. All right, so Greg Sankey at the spring SEC meetings in Destin, talking about the future of the college football playoff and about the automatic qualifiers. Let's grab this real quick there, David Air. Cut one. This is Sankey, his opening presser at the SEC spring meetings in Destin, talking college football playoff and automatic qualifiers.
No, not for purposes here. There's a lot attributed to me that is not at this moment attributable to me. So our athletics directors met 3 weeks ago, looked at a set of formats. We have interest in some. We're not committed to any particular format. I have, over time, talked about, hey, let's just have the fill-in-the-blank number best teams. That goes back to 2019, 2020 playoff expansion. I've reiterated that. I think our room has an interest in a different model. We'll see how that conversation manifests itself this week, and we'll look a little bit more deeply at different ideas, which will put me at some point in a better position to answer those questions.
Would you elaborate on, you said our room has interest in a different model?
Different models, yeah. Our athletics director's room in particular went back to early May when we had a meeting where we focused on some different ideas. So we'll bring back some more information for them to take a look at.
Look, what I love about Sankey is he is a wordsmith like nobody's business.
Yeah.
I love the whole we're interested, but we're not committed. Can you hear him like dating? Or go with a girl? Yeah, you know, I'm interested, Louise. I'm not committed.
When the girl asks you the question, so like, what is this? What are we exactly? Well, I'm exploring some possibilities, and I'm considering all options on the table. So I haven't come to a decision quite yet.
I'm not really
like, am I your
married
girlfriend or not? Like, what's the deal here?
I'm not really married to any of the options right now, but I am very open to exploring them.
The options on the table are all very good, and we're all considering them equally.
He just is. This is one of the. But look, there are many duties of a commissioner.
There are.
This is one of them.
Yes.
To say something but say nothing.
Yes. Again, they are the figurehead of a conference or a league or whatever it may be. They take the bullets, right? They have to answer the questions, and Roger Goodell is a master at spending 5 minutes telling you nothing, and that's why he gets paid $40 million to lead the NFL, because the leaders, the owners of the teams, they're like, hey, this guy is not going to usually say anything that's going to get us in trouble, say anything that's going to make the league look bad. He's going to deflect the bullets, and we're going to make more money because of it.
They look at him, they hold the check in front of Raj, his yearly paycheck, and they go, Raj, go out there in front of the microphone, go take the punches. This will be waiting for you.
Remember, protect the shield, player safety, make us money.
That's right.
Go do those three things.
Go get him, Raj. And that's really what Greg Sankey's job is, to put as much money in the pocket of every school in the SEC.
And he's doing a phenomenal job at that.
A great job. And that's the thing about all this is it's not Greg Sankey's job to do what's best for college football. It's Greg Sankey's job to do what's best for the SEC.
And when he talks about these discussions, and we're talking about coaches, athletic directors, presidents, everybody in the room here, and you've heard it. Kiffin was on Fine Line yesterday saying, hey, yeah, let's just do top 16, 16 best teams. What's wrong with that? So you have coaches that are like, yeah, let's keep this simple. While again, the ADs and stuff like, well, hang on, we want to make sure we're getting as many teams in that's going to help us out financially. The coaches could care less about how much money their school is making. They're obviously getting paid handsomely, but like, that's not the top level of concern. They want competition. Like, hey, if we're in the top 16, I want to be in this playoff. I don't want to have to be, well, you're 15th, but you're not one of the AQs, so you're not going to get in because of this. And like, no, just give me the top 16 teams.
And Kiffin, because again, the ADs are looking out for the school's pockets. The coach is looking out for his own pocket. Kiffin knows if you just take the top 16, there's a good chance Ole Miss is going to be in the top 16.
Yeah, again, Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, probably Tennessee, those teams should routinely always be in the top 16. LSU, to a degree, just about every single year. So, yeah, if you give us top 16, they know they're going to be in every single time.
Last year it would have been Ole Miss, Alabama, and South Carolina would have been part of the dance.
They would have been. And the league would have had more than anybody else by a wide margin.
As a matter of fact, the SEC would have had 6, which would be more than the Big 12, ACC, and the Group of 5 combined.
Yeah.
Because they would have had 5 combined.
Yes.
And I believe the Big Ten had the rest. But the SEC had 6, which was far and away the most. So at the end of the day, yeah, the model that I think makes most logic is the model the SEC would love, which is, okay, the 4 power conferences get automatic. The highest rated mid-major gets the automatic. If Notre Dame's available, they're in too, obviously. Everything else is at large.
Yeah.
No automatic qualifier from conferences, like conference predetermined spots. And just the rest is by the committee.
And like this year, straight seeding. So, okay, if you're the Big 12 champion, but you're 16th, that doesn't automatically vault you up to 4th. Guess what? You're going to occupy the last spot in. And again, if we got all 16 conference champions within the top 16, boom, it's easy. And then if you have somebody on the outside looking in, you'd bump 16th or 15th or whatever it may be. That would make the most sense. It'd be the most logical. And I think, quite frankly, it would satisfy everybody because, like, okay, here's your line. Get above this line, and you're in. Or win your conference championship. Simple, to the point. And as we get to automatic qualifiers and 4 for the SEC and 4 for the Big Ten, like, it just creates a mess.
Yes,
right?
A huge mess. And speaking of that, let's get cut 3, David, there. Let's get Greg Sankey talking about automatic qualifiers in the college football playoff. Like, the SEC having 4 automatic bids, and that's what you get. That, and we'll go back to last year as an example of this, using that thing where the SEC gets 4 automatically, the Big Ten gets 4, whatever.
It's the 4-4-2-2-1 model.
Right.
Yes.
That could hurt the SEC. Here's Sankey talking about that. Cut 3, Dave.
So if you actually go back and do the research, that kind of format could cost us positions, depending on the number of teams. I don't see the critics actually digging in to understand that reality. I don't see the critics actually analyzing, like I've just described, how schedules are evaluated. So the critics can run to the microphones and share their opinions. We're trying to find a format to determine whatever number it is, the best teams in college football. And I think where we are right now is we have used a political process inside a room to come to decisions about football. We should be using football information to come to football decisions. Have to be unanimous. We provide a model and then we sit on our hands for a year and a half, 2 years, as opposed to looking at the depth of issues I'm describing about the game and the concerns about regular season scheduling being impacted by what we have right now. We sat on our hands because we had to have unanimity.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what we do with college football. It's got to be messy and illogical and take forever. Here's the thing. Again, you look at last year, and you would have gone by what we just talked about, auto bids for the 4 power conferences and for the mid-major.
Sure.
The highest rated mid-major, and Notre Dame obviously would have been in, and then the rest is at large. The SEC would have actually been penalized if they had 4 autos because they would have lost 2 teams because last year they had 6. So Sankey is correct that, by the way, who's in such a crabby mood? I was waiting for it to go, and those critics can kiss my...
Yeah.
Sankey is correct, and if you sat back and looked at, it's not basic, tough research, it's just go look at the college football playoff final regular season rankings. This is not difficult.
Yeah.
And you see that having 4 auto bids for the SEC would have hurt them last year. So I get where he's going. And that's why we circle back to the easiest thing is you have 5 auto bids, and the rest of it is at large, set up by, to me, should be a certain criteria, but it'll be set up by a committee of people sipping coffee. And that's what it's going to be. But that makes the most sense. And the rest of this is just kind of silly.
It does. And when this original 4-4-2-2-1 model was introduced, I did say the one small positive is you'd be taking more power out of the hands of the committee. Because, again, I don't feel like most of them are qualified to make this decision anyway. So it'd be more straightforward of, hey, here's 1 through 4 in the SEC, 1 through 4 in the Big Ten. You get in, and then they'd be able to decide on the final couple of teams, in there. But that is not enough of an argument to say, yeah, this is definitely the right model to use. Because, again, keep it simple.
Because that way you're truly getting the teams in and look, we'll never get it the way it should be, but in the way it's done, it would be the most efficient way to get the best teams into this thing.
Sure.
That's the way it would be. All right, just in case you just woke up, you're on the game. Good news. You thought we were done talking softball. No. Good news for Ashley Chastain-Woodard, the head softball coach at South Carolina. And good news for a former Gamecock pitcher. We got that coming up next on the halftime show. David Ayers steering the ship. Tyler's here. Terry Ford, we go to 3 on the game. Just in case you just woke up here on the halftime show, Ashley Chastain Woodard, National Coach of the Year, announced by D1 Softball. Obviously, what went on here at South Carolina with the softball program, a phenomenal season, phenomenal first year for Coach Chastain Woodard. Picked near the bottom or at the bottom of the SEC by pretty much everyone. South Carolina was 1 out away from going to the College World Series, so much deserved. Good for Coach Woodard. Ashley Chastain Woodard, National Coach of the Year. Very nice. Very nice. You remember Will Sanders, lefty for the Gamecocks, drafted by the Cubs a couple years ago. Sanders last year, first full year, he was at, I believe, South Bend, which was high A in the Cubs organization. Had some good moments and obviously had some learning moments. Then this year has been at Double A. Is it Double A Nashville? Off the top of my head. But he's pitched really well at Double A. His walks are down last year. His walks were an issue. Had a whip of like over 1.4. This year, the walks are down a bunch. He's still striking out a hitter an inning. His overall numbers are good. And now the word is Will Sanders will move up to AAA Iowa and still a starting pitcher. And there was talk when Sanders had his issues his final year at South Carolina. And I remember he was kind of going to a sports psychologist. Came back and then had some minor injury issues as well. Came back and was throwing out the bullpen. And finished the year out of the pen. But look, make no mistake, Will Sanders has starter stuff. It's just, and this is not to be mean, this is in a baseball context. It's from the neck up with him. Can he be a starting pitcher? Because it's a chess match. And if Will Sanders can, lock in consistently on the chess match, he could be a starting pitcher in the majors. But if not, he'll be a guy coming out of the pen. But that's a major league arm. So good for Will Sanders. He's going to go to AAA Iowa, moving up the rung in the Cubs minor league ladder. So, again, good for Will Sanders. Last night in the NBA, man, did Tyrese Halliburton put on a show. And, look, if you listen to this show enough, you know I love me some Tyrese Halliburton. I liked him at Iowa State. I thought he was phenomenal in college. Halliburton, last night, rolled out a triple-double. In that triple-double, scored 30 points, dished out 15 dimes, pulled down 12 boards. And you'll know the answer to this, but I'll throw it out to you anyway, Tyler. How many turnovers he had?
That'd be 0.
As many as we did.
First time anybody's ever put that stat line up since they tracked turnovers.
77, 78, I think it was a year.
No, but again, all your favorites, all your legends, nobody's ever done that.
Tyrese Halliburton, you're seeing a few things you're learning about Tyrese Halliburton, and there's things, right? We'll do the list. A, he is a hell of a point guard.
Yes.
And he passes the rock like nobody's business. Also can score. You're seeing that. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's very efficient. 4, did you see what he wore coming into the arena last night?
I did not.
Suit and shorts. So we know that no one's dressing him.
Sure.
And we know that his father has to stay away from the court. That's what we know about Tyrese Halliburton.
They had him up in the suite last night as far away from the court as possible. And I think Preston brought this up today. It's really funny, and especially with basketball, because you have a lot of people that are old school basketball nuts about, hey, nothing past 1995 in the NBA is acceptable anymore. Like,
once you turn to the new millennium, it's
right.
crap.
People are very hesitant to, especially when a career is still going on, because he's 25, to say, man, this guy could be an all-time great. And how dare you say that? Like, no, he's still got a lot of his career left. But what he's doing up to this point, getting set to go to his first finals here, pretty much coming up next week, all but confirmed at this point, like, no, he has accomplished a lot so far. And 30 years from now, we could be talking about him in the same conversation as some of those all-time greats. And again, that makes people mad because nobody wants to ever break that bubble of, the Michael Jordans and the Kobes and all those kind of things. But you're seeing a guy position himself that way right now.
Tyrese Halliburton, what Halliburton did last night was historic. And is that my opinion because I watched it? Yeah, but you know what? The numbers back up how historic a night it was. And if you're watching the game, the way Halliburton, he runs that offense. He pushes the pace. He gets the ball out to to shooters and scorers in the best position to get buckets. Last night, Halliburton, his passes, I think the Indiana offensive players were, I think, like 15 of 22 off of passes from Halliburton last night, which means, A, the Indiana players were nailing buckets, but B, Halliburton was also putting them in a great position to score and to get good quality shots. Look, is he an all-world defender? No. But, you know, he's just a phenomenal point guard. And I will go down the basketball rabbit hole of why certain franchises are always certain franchises. Sacramento had Tyrese Halliburton. And Sacramento could have drafted Luka Doncic. But they got rid of Halliburton, and they didn't draft Doncic because they loved De'Aaron Fox.
That's why
who, by the way, is now in San Antonio.
That's why the Kings will always be the Kings.
Yes. And De'Aaron Fox is a good player. This is not a knock. But De'Aaron Fox is not Luka, and he's not Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah,
and the idea that, A, you decided not to draft a generational offensive talent because you had De'Aaron Fox, not understanding you could have them both.
Sure.
It's not against the rules. But then you would have got rid of De'Aaron Fox once you realized how good Luka was. And B, you had Halliburton. You watched him play.
We're just too talented. We can't hang on to this.
And you chose De'Aaron Fox. And then De'Aaron Fox looked at you this past year and said, you know what? You guys are a clown show. I got to get out of here.
It's kind of one of those things you almost wonder if organizations like that are like, man, well, in a couple years, we're going to have to cut some big checks. Okay, get to that bridge when you get there. But for now, while these guys are on rookie deals, take advantage of it.
I tell you, Halliburton's so good. But it just, every time I see Halliburton ball out like last night, at some point I'll go, yeah, way to go, Sacramento. But you know the best thing that happened to Halliburton? Get traded by Sacramento.
Oh, totally. No, we wouldn't be talking about it in the same way. Like, hey, he's that really good player on that crappy team.
Right. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pile on the Knicks because you can just watch national sports talk. It's like after they talk about 30 seconds on Halliburton, they spend the next half hour beating the hell out of the Knicks.
Sure.
For what they didn't do last night. And the Knicks didn't do a lot of things well last night. They didn't defend. They turned the ball over a ton. They didn't get the ball to the right players in the fourth quarter. I mean, the Knicks, we could go all day.
Well, they didn't get down by 20. That was their problem.
Well, honestly, when they were down like 12 or 13, I'm like, the Knicks got them right where they want them.
Here it comes.
Here we go.
Yeah.
But I want to give Rick Carlisle some credit, the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. You know who the head coach was, the Dallas Mavericks, who upset the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals? Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle never gets enough credit as a coach. They say, who's the guy who looks like Jim Carrey? Rick Carlisle has decided, looking at his team and looking at the NBA today, we are going to put our foot on the gas and play fast. And they have run the Knicks up and down the court. And Tom Thibodeau, and so it was a great joke on social media that our sales guru, Jeff Haley, told me about, that Tom Thibodeau wouldn't play 9 guys if he was a baseball manager, which I thought was pretty good. And basically also Rick Carlisle is playing to the problem that Tom Thibodeau has of Thibodeau plays his starters into the ground.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to sub a lot, especially in the postseason. He tightens the bench.
Sure.
He's running like 6 guys, 7 tops. So, you know, Carlisle is running and he's playing 8 to 10 and he's wearing the Knicks down because Thibodeau has a blind spot for...
and a bald spot.
Please just shave it. Am I wrong?
What?
Shave it.
I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish, right? Because like there are decent comb overs out there that can fool people. That's not fooling anyone. And the fact that like the lights shine off of it makes it look worse.
And I think he's putting something there to hold it down.
Yeah.
Because when you see the shine going on it,
it's almost like it's painted on.
Yeah, it's
right.
It's
like
weird.
That's not how hair is supposed to look.
No, just shave it off.
This thing's like I think most people can pull off bald. Just be bald. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what?
Well, people laugh at you for a little bit, but eventually they get used to it.
And they don't care.
Because every time I see that on TV, I'm like, and how much money do you make?
Right. It's like cartoon hair. Somebody drew it on there.
Exactly.
It's like, come on, Tom.
It's like, how do Mark Davis, how do these super rich people have terrible hair?
You know why? Because when you're rich and you go, how's my hair look? What do you say back to me?
It's like, oh, you look amazing.
Yeah, can we go get something to eat and you're buying? That's how it goes.
He needs someone to be honest with him, please.
Yes. Someone pull Tom Thibodeau aside.
Season's about to end in the next couple days. You got time.
Tom, what?
It's not like
Hair's
there's not
working.
10 trillion barbers in New York City that could help him out.
I know. All right, that's just in case you just woke up. Firehouse Sub text the hour next at 803-404-6100 on the halftime show. David Ayers, he's making sure we stay on the air. Tyler's here. It's Terry Ford. We go to 3 on the game. All right, time to jump in and get our Firehouse Up. Text the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Tyler?
Nameless texter, it's not everybody's fault that you loaded up your conference with a bunch of power teams, so a lot of people are not going to feel sorry for SEC teams if they are getting left out.
I get it to a point when you want to have the Texases, and even though Oklahoma had a down year, Oklahoma, which is a behemoth brand.
It makes the conference more money.
Right, and
that's why they're here.
Circles it back. And Texter,
they weren't looking at Illinois.
No, they were looking at, can we add Texas Tech, and can we add
Oklahoma State?
No.
Would they bring some money? Sure, but not as much as the two big names that dominated the Big 12 conference.
I think, Texter, you're on to a point, though, and the point is this: when you are looking to add big brands so you can make more money and you add these better schools, you run the risk of, being a really good team. Let's say you were like last year with South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss. You're 9-3.
Sure.
And until the criteria gets changed where strength of schedule matters more, which it should, a 9-3. Just look, you and I look at a paper.
Yeah.
You see 11-1. You see 9-3. If it's just a blind resume with 2 1-loss records, which one are you looking at as the better deal?
11-1.
It's like common sense,
games.
right?
Yeah, totally.
So if you're not deep diving into it and you're just looking at 1-loss record, and some of these people, guess what? They're kind of lazy.
Yeah.
So they see 11-1 over 9-3. They're automatically going to go with the 11-1 team is more deserving.
And it's one of those things that there is never any way to truly balance scheduling in college football because everybody exists within their own conference. Some conferences are better than others. And heck, some years the Big Ten top to bottom is better than the SEC. Some years the SEC is better top to bottom than the Big Ten is. And it's going to fluctuate back and forth, but and we deal in hypotheticals because that's what college football is. So everybody said, well, if Indiana played in the SEC and played Alabama's schedule, no way they're winning 9 games. Well, guess what? They don't play in the SEC. They didn't play Alabama's schedule. Neither did SMU. Neither did anybody else. There's no way to circumvent that and make a strong argument one way or the other because there's no way to compare the two truly.
And the only way, and I think strength of schedule should matter. You're right. You can't balance. It's impossible. I think it should matter, though, because you do have wiggle room in who you play in the non-conference.
You do.
And if you decide you want to go Cupcake City for whatever your reason is, and look, there's multiple reasons to go and play, as many, theater schools. I don't care, whatever. Sure. I get why you want to stack W's, whether I've got a young team that needs confidence early in the year. I want to get enough W's to go to a bowl game to keep my job. Whatever your reasoning is for playing those teams.
Sure.
You are making a choice to play easier opponents. I really think that strength of schedule should matter. Now, I think if you want to separate and go even deeper, Tyler, to strength of schedule, non-conference strength of schedule, and conference strength of schedule to help you also better differentiate. I got no problem with that either, but I think strength of schedule somehow needs to matter. And last year, obviously, it didn't matter.
Well, let's look at a team like Missouri, who, again, they had 9 wins as well, but they were nowhere near the conversation of Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina because they didn't play, A, as tough of a schedule in the SEC, and B, when you look at their out-of-conference teams. Now, Kansas, we didn't know they were going to be as bad as they were, but that didn't help them out. Central Arkansas, Louisiana, and let me see here. Who did they start the season with? This is 2025. Let me go back to 2024. But they didn't have it as tough of a schedule top to bottom as other schools in the SEC, so they weren't even in that same realm of discussion as the schools in the SEC because their schedule was weaker. They played Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Massachusetts.
Well, dude, when you play the Bills.
Yeah, well, it's not the Bills.
Oh, it's not?
It's the Lim Buffaloes.
Right, exactly. So look at that compared to, what these other schools played in the non-conference.
Yeah.
I just think that needs to matter. Because look at Indiana, look at SMU at the end of the day. All right, we'll get back in here. Lots more football in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll hear from Kirby Smart, his thoughts at the spring meetings coming up next. Halftime show. Tyler's here, Dave's here, Terry Ford. We are running until 3 here on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. We appreciate you. All right, we do nothing but football yapping here in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We're going to get some Kirby Smart in just a minute. First, I do want to circle back on another Greg Sankey cut. Dave, let's get ready for this. Let's get... What's the one-on-one here? Give us cut 4, because I think cut 4 is very interesting. Talking about these play-in games and at-large bids, and the play-in game, if you go automatic qualifiers like 4 in the SEC, 4 in the Big Ten, and 2 in the ACC, 2 in the Big 12, whatever, you're going to bring in this animal called the play-in round, and there's going to get rid of the conference championship game.
Yes, so you'd have, 4 versus... or 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, something like however many you want to play in.
Like let's do the all right. Last year, and we'll see what do it off the top of our head. In the SEC last year, Georgia and Texas finished with the top 2 seeds, correct?
Yes, they did.
Then you would have Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina.
That sounds right.
That would be the 4 next in line.
Yes.
So those 4 would play each other. And the 2 winners of those 2 games in the play-in games would take the automatic qualifier.
And here's the funny thing, because if you did get to this format, you could just be straightforward and say, "Hey, let's just take the top 4, no debate, no play-in, and you're in the college football playoff." But then it's like, well, we've already devalued the conference championship. We gotta have something on that weekend, right?
Exactly. And don't we want to make some money?
Yeah. Like, oh God, if you gave me Alabama and Ole Miss for a spot in the college football playoff Saturday, December 7th or whatever.
No TV ratings there, right?
Oh, my God. It's through the roof. And especially because there'd only be a handful of games that day, a limited amount of options to watch. You're keyed in on that game. Again, through the roof numbers, revenue, and all those kind of things. Like, again, everything's about money. Would it make, if you wanted that format, it'd make the most sense in the world, especially if those 2 teams already played each other. Well, why do we got a rematch? Well, because we got to make sure we got the best teams. But I already beat them by 30 points.
No matter.
In their barn. Why do we got to play them again? Well, that's just how it works.
Ready? We need more money, guys.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. SEC doubleheader.
I was going to say, what if it was South Carolina and Ole Miss rematching? Ole Miss, we beat them by 3 touchdowns in their home stadium. Why are we playing them again? Well, no. It's because of money. Yeah.
You understand, Mr. Kiffin, we need to make a lot of money. You like money, right, Mr. Kiffin? So we need more money as a conference. And that doubleheader, you have a doubleheader weekend where the SEC is going to play basically 2 elimination games to go into the college football playoff.
Yes.
You are talking cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
And again, every conference would have this to some degree. So technically the playoff itself is 16 teams. Really, you're having 30-plus teams be involved in this.
So, the ACC is going to be more difficult. The ACC, SMU won the regular season, and it was a mosh pit at the top of the ACC last year.
Yeah, and you had a bunch of teams that didn't play each other and all that stuff.
So you would basically, SMU would be in, and then Clemson and would it be Louisville? I forget, Clemson, and there's another, it was a big dumpster fire at the top of the ACC last year.
The prevailing thought is that if you went to this, because the ACC and the SEC still play 8 conference games, you'd need to have a 9th conference game to clear up as much confusion as possible. And
teams would be okay with that if you had these automatic qualifiers.
Yes, because, again, and this goes back to my point where I'm not supporting the 4-team model.
What's wrong with us? It would be Miami and Clemson would be playing.
I'm not supporting the 4-team automatic qualifier model, but at least you're taking some of the committee subjectivity out of it. Like, hey, if you want to get in the college football playoff, be in the top 4 or top 2 of your conference or top 6 so you can play in. It's that straightforward and no debate of, your strength of schedule and stuff like that. It would take the committee out of it. That is one positive I can think about for this.
As much as I'm against giving leagues automatic bids into the playoff, that is the one thing I totally agree with you that, because you know how much I love this committee.
Yes.
I would love to see stuff taken out of the hands of these people where, again, we're getting to more of a cut and dry model. Yes. But again, you know what that does, Tyler? It's logical.
It is logical.
It makes sense to get rid of the committees. So we don't want to do that because we love the committees.
Sure.
But so I'm torn on it because in theory, I don't like saying, okay, you automatically get 4 teams. Because I think you have to earn it by your resume and record going through the year, like the NCAA tournament in basketball. But it does get rid of the thing that drives me crazy in college football.
Yeah.
That ridiculous college football playoff committee.
Yeah, and I think if it was a little more even across the board, and yes, I get it, the ACC and the Big 12 are not the same conferences in the Big 10 and the SEC, but if you at least gave the illusion that it was fair and said, all right, all 4 power conferences will get 3 teams in a piece, that is 12 spots, and then you have 4 at-larges. And then that's determined by the rankings. And, hey, group of 5, you want to get in, you got to be in the top 16. Notre Dame, if you want to get in, got to be in the top 16. And then you give the opportunity for the SEC, the Big 10, whoever, to add in a 4th or 5th team with those other 2 spots or whatever it may be. Like, that, I think, is something more people would look at and say, all right, I get it, I'm okay with this. But it's the shift of, like, well, we're just assuming the SEC and the Big 10 are going to be better every single year, so they're just going to get 4 teams in.
You know what's interesting? If you go back to last year and just go by that, going through the easy way of the 4 auto bids or the 5 auto bids, and then you're at-larging, and obviously Notre Dame was part of it. The Big 12 only gets 1 team.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yep.
The closest one, if that was BYU, just outside of it at 17.
Yep.
So if you're the Big 12, you'd love to have 2 automatic bids.
Sure.
And the ACC last year had 3. It was Miami and Clemson and SMU. So, again, let's say, and that was kind of a good year for the ACC, to be fair.
Sure.
Because there's years the ACC would have like 1 legit team. So if you're the ACC and the Big 12, if you can get 2 automatic qualifiers, you're going like this, score, right? So I think this automatic qualifier thing, as much as I have a problem with it, I do believe I can see it. I can see the 4 power conferences going for it because it benefits them.
Because that way, and again, I'm not advocating for it, but you at least go into the season knowing there's a cut and dry way to get in the playoff. And it's not, okay, well, we got to impress this group of people. I don't know what their criteria is going to be this year. Like, no, if you're good enough in your conference to be in one of those coveted top spots, you get in, no questions asked. Now, again, seeding and all that kind of stuff, yeah, the committee would still decide that, but there would be less teams put in the hands of them to decide who gets in and who doesn't.
I mean, but again, going back to what we talked about last hour, that model, the one conference it could hurt is the SEC. Because last year, SEC would have had 6. But okay, let's go this way. If you go 4-4, 2-2, 1. That's all right. That's 13, right?
Sure.
And then let's say Notre Dame is getting in. That's 14. Now, they're not going to get in every year. Let's say they're getting in.
Yeah.
Now, you still have 2 at-large spots. I mean, you do. So, in theory, like the SEC could still pull the 2 at-large spots, but there's no guarantee, obviously.
I think this also underlines, because at least when we went from 4 to 12, we had a decade's worth of data with a 4-team playoff to look at that and say, hey, here's how the 12-team playoff would work. Here's how many teams would be getting in on average with the SEC and all this kind of stuff. Whereas we're going to jump from 12 to 16 likely before actually having a second year of the 12-team format. Because, again, I think Sankey said they have to decide on things by December the 1st, where it's like, okay, you have 1 year of data. You're trying to figure things out based on that. That's not how these kind of things should typically work. But that's where we're at, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so here's the thoughts of Greg Sankey talking about the at-large bids and the play-in games, which would be a result if a few of these conferences got automatic bids into the college football playoff. Cut 4, Dave.
Well, in our own room, I've had athletic directors tell me directly that we've given too much away to arrive at these political compromises, that we move teams from outside 12 in. And we've spoken about that before, how many of those compromises does it take? Last week, it took us a while to move beyond a model introduced in 21, early 21, when the conference alignments looked much different than they do now. And so part of, I think, the right conversation is about how do you continue to adapt? Football's not a static game, nor should it be. I think the second recognition is things have changed greatly. And part of where we are in basketball is because we have changed as a membership. So both of our new members were selected at large. We've we've taken 10 years to move from where we were for the preceding 10 years. So there's not like switch flipping that goes on. I think the word hope is at the center too. Like, how do you bring people into the conversation late in the season in this changing environment? And so the idea of could you have play-in type games continues to populate itself before you're into CFP selection. That's about building interest and giving hope. Whether that's the ultimate destination, we'll see. But to your question, why does it populate itself? Why do people think about it? Even if it costs us something, you could have more teams perhaps involved later in the season through that model.
Again, because if you're Greg Sankey, you're smart because you look out for the SEC and you're not just making stuff up. Last year you could have had 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're saying, well, if you got 4 autos, that might be limiting us because once we get into this battle for the last 2 at-larges, we might not get that. But if we're just in this system of 16, we'd have 6 last year.
But even he said, we're going off 1 year's worth of data as opposed to, hey, let's take a decade to let this play out, see what the trends are, see where college football is, and then decide. Again, we're going off of 1 year's worth of data, trying to figure things out. Because here's the thing. Once we decide on this thing, I don't think it's going to change.
No. But again, if we sit back and be patient and wait for, let's say, 5 years of data, nobody wants to be patient and logical, Tyler. It's college football.
Yeah. No,
Come
totally.
on. What's wrong with you and Sankey and all this logic? There's no logic here. It's college football. But, if you looked at the 16 team last year, I keep going back to it. I keep closing it out because I'm losing my mind. If you look at last year, for an example, and you go to the rankings at the end of the year, now let's take this 4-4-2-2-1, 3.5, 7 3/4 model, or whatever the hell it is. All right, so we'll start easy.
Yep.
The SEC would have had 4, and let's just go by the 4.
Okay.
They would have had Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, and Alabama's at 11.
Yes.
So they have those 4.
Straightforward.
Big Ten would have had Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana. Boom. 2 for the ACC would have been SMU and would have been this is the final rankings. SMU and Miami.
Yep.
And the Big 12 would have had Arizona State, BYU, because BYU was 17th. So you're taking 2 teams out of the top. You're taking 2 teams. Well, no, Clemson was 16th.
Yep.
All right, so that's what you got. And then you have Notre Dame. Now you have 2 at-larges. So once again, you spin on down on this baby, and you find your at-larges. And Boise State's in too. Your at-larges would have been Ole Miss and South Carolina.
Yes.
So that's how this thing would have gone last year.
And, okay. But BYU gets in, then that means one team in the 16
Yeah, you're
has to get
knocking
left
out Clemson. Because ACC only gets 2.
But they still would have won the.
No,
they
I'm
would
going
have been
before the.
top 2.
I'm going before the. I'm just going by the ranking right now. If
Okay.
Clemson wins the championship,
Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
I'm just going by this.
I got you.
Looking at just trying to make it easy by looking at this.
Gotcha.
Now, if we get more convoluted on who won the championship game, then Clemson's in and Miami's out.
Right. Okay.
So that's the way that would work.
Clear as mud.
But yeah, a lot of mud. So basically, you're putting BYU in, you're taking Miami out, and South Carolina would have been in with Ole Miss. So
Yes.
the ACC would have. I mean, the SEC still would have got their 6
Yes.
because
Off of 1 year.
one
In 1
year.
year.
Yes,
1
it's
year.
1 year.
1 year's worth of data.
Yes. So.
So we're making this decision.
And in
based
this
off of-
state, everyone would have been happy because if you had the championship games in,
Well, half the
Clemson's
state
in, and
would have been
South
happy.
Carolina. Well, that's true. The other
Yeah.
half would. But both Palmetto State teams would have been in the college football playoff last year. All right, there you go. We'll come back, hear from Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart talk about coaching up players in this new world, and also you need some rules. That's next here on the Halftime Show. Lots of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game with Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Ayer. Kind of like punching the buttons for us as we roll till 3 o'clock. All right, Kirby Smart was hanging out at the spring meetings in Destin like all the coaches are, and he sat down and started yapping with Paul Feinbaum. And Kirby, we'll go with this one, Dave. Kirby talked about you got to have some rules in place so we as coaches know what we're doing when it comes to transfer portals and all these other things. We need some rules. Hit it.
The issue is the inability to pinpoint what the rules are and what we can do. You know, like nobody's upset about. We're all very thankful,
well,
especially
they're
SEC players. SEC players should be. They're the most marketable players. They get the most coverage. They get seen on TV. I am so comfortable with that. We're past that point. We just want to know the parameters with which we're playing by and be able to sustain a budget and have other sports survive. I think every coach would take that at this point. There's no old school, young school. There's none of that. We're comfortable paying the players.
I mean, just more rules, you know. And one of the things that's coming up a lot in Destin, and it comes up a lot whenever the coaches meet, is one portal window.
Yes.
That's it. Give us one portal. I shouldn't say most, a lot of coaches would rather prefer to have a January portal. And the big pushback there is the academic year. But Kirby Smart, and we don't have it in this sound, but when Kirby was being interviewed yesterday, he said, well, we find a way to get these high school kids in who want to enroll early, right?
Yeah, and you know we do forget that they still do have to go to class. They can figure out a way to make this work. Like that's not a dead end by any means.
It feels like January's the right time. You know, well, I'll take that back. When's the college football playoff ending?
Well, it's still ending in the end of January right now, but at least for the majority of teams, you're not dealing with the portal being opened in the middle of December while you're preparing for a bowl game or a playoff game and while you're still signing the rest of your high school class.
Yeah, I mean, you got to move it out of December. I mean, to me, December's asinine.
There is no, unfortunately, because again, academic calendar, there's not a perfect place for it anywhere on the calendar. But January, let's just say, I don't know, January 1st through the 10th is a whole lot better than December, 10th through the 20th or whatever.
I feel like January, February is your sweet spot, right?
Probably.
Somewhere in there is your sweet spot. Because, look, the National Signing Day doesn't matter anymore. That's gone. Now, again, I would move early signing day. And, look, none of this is perfect. Everybody can throw a pin in any of this. I almost feel like maybe do you move early signing day to right before sometime, maybe before you start summer camps or whatever the case, where these kids go into their senior year and they're already signed and it's done.
There is a lot of argument to be made about that. Now, that, as we know, the early signing day, it's not just one day, it's a window. You have a period of time all the way through what we know is traditional signing day to sign with the school. So if you're a guy that goes into your senior year, you don't want to sign on July 31st, you don't have to. You can keep the window open for a couple months or whatever it may be. But yes, because again, everybody just signs on early signing day now. Like that's become National Signing Day. We went past it in February this year and didn't realize that it was signing day.
We didn't talk about it.
Because nobody was signing that day, especially here, but for the most part nationally as well. So yeah, I think there are arguments to be made for moving it up to before the season. That's not on top of the priority list right now, but it's something that's certainly in the realm of being discussed.
I think, last time I think South Carolina had a while, I think it was Harbor was on National Signing Day.
He was on National Signing. He was the only one.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason we talked about it because, again, and he was a five-star. That helped out too. But, gone are the days of, February 5th, 6th, whatever it was, of ESPNU just having an all-day marathon.
Now they do it for early signing
Now there's
day.
nothing there.
Right. So if you can move the transfer portal window out of December, whether you want to do January, February, whatever the case, you move it. And you get it out of December because it's stupid while all these schools are preparing for bowl games or college football playoff games or whatever the case. You're dealing with early signing day for everyone in the country.
Yep.
The transfer portal there just makes no sense. And look, again, if we look at the professional model, there's one free agent period in the NFL. Not multiple. One free agent period in the NBA. Major League Baseball, NHL, one free agent period.
Well, and when you talk about, okay, let's say you sign your guys before the season starts, whatever it may be. Okay, season's over. I now know what my incoming freshman class looks like. All right, boom, there goes all the guys that are going to transfer out on January 1st. All right, here are the spots I need to fill. I have X amount of time to fill those spots. We get to the spring, we get to spring ball. I have my team here. I know who's going to be on the roster this fall, and that's it. Boom, we're done.
One problem. If you take away the second portal window, what could you conceivably be doing to players?
Of course, affecting antitrust.
How do you get around? Why don't they have that fight in the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA or the NHL, Tyler?
There's an agreement between the players and the league.
What's that called?
Collective bargaining.
Yeah, drink.
Because
Shots on me.
Okay, let's just say you have, I don't know, kid at Group of 5 school, let's say Toledo, that balls out in spring. And, hey, did you care about this kid at Toledo, wide receiver, whatever it may be? Well, now he doesn't have the option if he wants to transfer to Ohio State and make more money.
So guess what you're doing?
Yeah, you're violating his antitrust. Again, you want to bang your head on the wall because it's just so insane that we keep looping back to this, but that's the nature of it.
How do you fix it, Tyler? Say it for me.
Collectively bargain. But as we've talked about,
have another shot.
These leagues, the NCAA, it feels like they're above negotiating with players.
Well, again, I really, I'll say it and they won't admit it. I just don't think they want to sit in a room and negotiate with teenagers. I just don't think they want to do it. All right, let's get one more Kirby Smart in here, Dave, right now. We might get a little bit more next hour. Here's Kirby talking about coaching kids today when they can look at you and say, oh, I didn't like the way you talked to me. I'm hitting the portal. Here's Kirby.
Now, parents always tell me, I really want my son to come play there because I know you're still going to coach them the right way. You're going to push them. You're going to demand excellence. You're not going to run from the fact that they could leave. That is inevitable. They could leave. But that doesn't make them more successful because they leave.
Look, Kirby, there are coaches that still hold players accountable and coach them up and things of that nature. And I think, and again, winning helps that because if you're winning and you're coaching kids with an edge or coaching them hard or whatever, kid will come to, I'll go play for that guy because why? We're going to win, he's going to get me to the NFL, right? Or we're going to win, he's going to get me to the NBA or whatever it is.
Yep.
And look, because we had all this stuff going on with baseball and Coach Maneri and some of the quote-unquote old school hard coaching, I circle back to this, and I said this to you and Jay. I really believe you can coach a kid hard. You can hold a kid accountable. But you've also got to show the side of that kid's got to think, he's got to trust that you are also trying to make him better.
Sure.
And he's got to trust you have his best interest at heart. And there's a difference between coaching hard and being a bully.
Yeah.
And all these things, I think there's a line on all this to where, look, kids are going to transfer no matter what at times. You're never going to keep everybody. But I do believe, like, if anything, if you're getting up in my grill, but I know you're doing it for me to be a better me, or because I made a mistake, you're trying to correct it so I won't do it again, or whatever.
Yep.
That's one thing. But if I think you're just being a jackass, that's another thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference in a lot of it, and some of it just as simple as come back to winning at times.
And look, are there going to always be players that first time you yell at them, they're going to hit hit the portal?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Those guys are always going to exist. But there's also plenty of guys out there that got coached really tough in high school that understand that, hey, he's chewing my butt, but he's trying to make me better, and I'm going to be a better player, setting myself up for the NFL or whatever if I stay at this program because of that. So, again, you're going to have both sides of the equation. But, yeah, especially for a place like Georgia, which, again, is an NFL factory, I think a lot of guys go there knowing, all right, this is not going to be easy, but if I'm successful here, I can have a long career at this.
And I think, too, if you coach people tough, but when they do something right, you acknowledge the fact they did it right.
Yes.
I mean, if you're the coach that's been coaching a kid hard and yelling at him and whatever the case, and then he gets on the field and gets it right, and you're the first person on the field running to congratulate them,
yes.
You know how much that means to that player?
Has to be a balance. Yeah, if you're just the guy that's on them to be on them, yeah, that's going to run players away.
Right, because they want to know that you are trying to make, and you care.
Yes.
You care.
Yep.
All right. Terry Bradshaw doesn't care about Aaron Rodgers. We'll get to that next. This is good. It's so funny. The unlikability of Aaron Rodgers reaches another level with Terry Bradshaw. That's next here on the Halftime Show as we talk football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors in the game. We're talking a lot of football. That's what we're talking about, and you're talking about, and everybody's talking about here in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Oh, Terry Bradshaw, Aaron Rodgers. Really, Aaron Rodgers has nothing to do with it. It's Terry Bradshaw. He was on 103.7 The Buzz in Arkansas yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And Bradshaw basically ripped everybody. First, he ripped the Steelers for being interested in Rodgers, and he kind of ripped Rodgers for being Rodgers. Here's the quote about, the Steelers and Rodgers, and Rodgers obviously hasn't committed to the Steelers, and, he hasn't come in for hasn't signed with them, which means he's not in any camps or anything like that.
Yep.
And Bradshaw, quote, "That's a joke. That to me is just a joke. What are you going to do? Bring him in for a year? Are you kidding me? That guy needs to stay in California, go somewhere and chew on bark. Whisper to the gods out there or something."
That sounds like something we'd say.
Yeah. That's why I love
So to hear that from a national,
We're chewing some
perspective, that's really funny.
It's hilarious. And look, I get where Bradshaw's going with the idea of, first of all, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. How the bleep did you get yourself in this position to where you are so desperate that you're going to wait for a past his prime, 40-some-year-old quarterback to decide if he wants to play for you or not?
It's definitely not fitting of the image we think of the Steelers.
No. And look, there's still time for the Steelers to figure this out. Now, the time's dwindling, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
There's still we're so desperate, we'll kick the tires on Kirk Cousins. That's still out there. Someone's going to do it.
Sure.
So, because again, in the NFL, you have 32 teams, and a good amount of them would like to improve their quarterback situation if they could.
Sure, even if only slightly.
Right. They don't care. They're desperate. It's 1:45. It's the last night at the beach.
You got to find someone.
You got to find someone. And so someone will kick the tires on Cousins.
Yes.
There's no doubt. And that's what Atlanta's hoping for. So this is just the desperation of we don't have a quarterback. The desperation of we tried to draft Kenny Pickett, it didn't work. The desperation of we've played musical quarterbacks, it didn't work. We got Russell Wilson. That worked better, but it still didn't work.
It was okay.
Yeah, Justin Fields, it didn't work. So now we're stuck. And I said this after the draft. If you didn't like any of the quarterbacks in the draft, I get you. It's a weak quarterback draft. So don't go out there and start giving up draft capital to move up to take a quarterback that you don't believe in. But because you didn't do it, and because you didn't really go out there and make any moves in free agency to grab someone, now you're stuck.
And a lot of organizations, nobody will ever admit this, a lot of organizations will kind of look at this year and say, all right, it's going to be a year where we're just going to lose a lot. But we're going to put ourselves in position for a better quarterback draft next year. But this is the Steelers.
They never do that.
The Steelers don't lose.
No.
The Steelers don't tank. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Could you see this conversation if you're the Steeler front office? Hey, Maggie, get Tomlin in here really quick. Thanks. Tomlin comes walking in, got that Mike Tomlin look on his face. Has his hat off because he looks even like,
more disheveled.
Tomlin.
Yeah.
Sit down, Coach. What's up? Well, we sat here, us, the brain trust of the organization. Of course, everybody's last name's Rooney.
Yep.
The brain trust of the organization, and we decided we're going to tank this year. So we maybe get Arch Manning or one of these really good quarterbacks in the top 5 of the draft. You with us? You understand? Silence, right? And then you just get this, Tomlin, don't tank.
Yeah.
And he gets up, breaks a chair over somebody's head, and walks out of the meeting.
Not sure if you're aware of this. I've never had a losing season.
Do you know? Let me get my record out for you really quick.
And
Here.
honestly, if I was Mike Tomlin and I heard, hey, we're tanking this year, I'd be concerned, hey, you're waiting for me to have a losing season. I'm going to lose my job.
Right. Or this. Hey, why don't you do that and you get a coach to tank and I'll come back next year when we get the quarterbacks.
Sure. So I get a year off, right?
Good.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you next year. Good talk.
Yeah, no, the Steelers, they don't do that.
They don't. And so you put yourself in this situation, and you right now, the way you're constructed in the quarterback room, you're not making the playoffs.
No, absolutely
You're
not.
just not. And that's just reality here. So you got to get a quarterback. Now, again, if you get Aaron Rodgers, and this is where you're at, if you get Aaron Rodgers and he plays sort of like he did down the stretch last year, okay, that could possibly be a 9-8, get you in the playoffs kind of season, which the Steelers do all the time now, right?
You could be a team that could be maybe a little better than 500.
If you get Kirk Cousins in there, and he's a little bit better than what you saw last year when he couldn't step and throw a football because his Achilles wasn't right still. If you get Kirk Cousins a few ticks better than he was last year, a little healthier Kirk Cousins, that's another, you can make the playoffs with that.
Sure. You're not going to go deep in the playoffs, but you could get there.
Right. So these things are there, but neither one of those solutions are going to have you compete for a Super Bowl. Neither one.
No.
But the funniest thing about Rodgers is I think we've gotten to a point with Rodgers where I think the sporting world, forget media, forget fans, forget people who just enjoy, famous people. I think the sporting world just can't stand him. He's annoying.
Sure.
And the more we've seen him, the more annoying he has become.
Yeah, because everything that comes out of his mouth is something you roll your eyes at.
Yeah.
And again, this whole charade of, maybe I'll play, maybe I'll retire. I don't know. Like, it's just going on. The Steelers play in 102 days. Yeah. They've already started OTAs.
Right. And the way you've played the last couple of years, bro, you just can't show up ready to go.
You don't, for the most part, hold all the cards here.
No.
Because you're not MVP Aaron Rodgers anymore.
No. I mean, the Steelers are desperate. There's a few other teams that are desperate that will put up with you to a point, but you aren't MVP Rodgers. Let's get to cut 14, Dave, real quick in here. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, now you can set this a little cut up.
This was at some kind of event, festival or whatever, and he was up on stage taking questions from fans, and this girl comes up and asks him, and you can hear the question here, if he's going to be in Chicago anytime this year.
Go for it.
Where will Aaron Rodgers ever go to the Bears?
Oh, boy. Security, can we get her out of here? I need some security. Security,
can you take it easy on her on this one?
No, but I believe there's a team that might play in Chicago this year. On a road trip. I don't know. I'm not sure. Got to check it out.
Are you speaking in code?
I love Chicago, though. Way more than they love me. It's been a great relationship, all one way.
Steelers visit the Bears on November 23rd, by the way.
Mm-hmm. That's what he's talking about. And it's funny because, the Aaron Rodgers Packers thumped the not very good Bears over and over. Remember, what did he say? I own you guys. What was you screaming at the fans in Chicago?
Something along those lines. And let's be honest, he did own the Bears.
Did he do the championship belt the first time against the Bears? Was that the first time he did the championship belt, the WWE?
It's very possible. But the people in Chicago do not like Aaron Rodgers.
They do not like Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers, look, do I think Aaron Rodgers will be the quarterback of the Steelers? Yes. I just do. I think it's going to happen. But here's the thing about it, which is going to be very fascinating, is that whole thing playing in Pittsburgh. Now, look, they put up with Antonio Brown, and we can sit here all day and talk about how annoying Aaron Rodgers is, about, sitting in some, wooden hut in the middle of the woods, burning incense and sitting with his legs crossed. Antonio Brown was seriously screwed up.
Yeah, and we really learned more about that once he finally left the Steelers. They did a good job of keeping a lot of that under wraps.
I mean, everybody in that organization sacrificed what they believe in to get Antonio Brown on the field on Sundays.
Yes, and
even Tomlin.
To a degree with George Pickens as well. Not to the same degree as Antonio Brown, but he also created a lot of problems.
And where's he at now?
Yeah.
He's traded.
Exactly.
Antonio Brown was crazy. So Aaron Rodgers is annoying. Annoying is very different than crazy.
Sure.
So, but I think Aaron Rodgers will be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers before it's all said and done. But Terry Bradshaw doesn't like that idea at all.
No. Go eat your bark.
Go eat some bark. All right. Firehouse Subtext the hour. 803-404-6100 next as we talk football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors in the Game. Firehouse Sub text of the hour, 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show. Tyler Head, what do you got there on the old text line, pal?
Nameless texter. I'm not sure if they're a Steelers fan or not. But they said the point is no one from Steelers Nation wants Aaron Rodgers. Go find a team on the West Coast, bud. Well,
That's a Steelers fan.
Most of the teams on the West Coast actually have decent quarterback situations.
By the way, that is a Steelers fan.
Yeah,
when you
probably.
call yourself Steeler Nation,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I don't think anybody's excited about it, but it's like, well, it's either this or Mason Rudolph.
Right. I mean, that's kind of, again, it's quarter
Or
two.
Will Howard or Skylar Thompson.
Right. I mean, I'd rather have Emma Thompson. But anyway, I just look at it like you're desperate. You put yourself in this desperate spot.
Yep.
Now you're just going to have to eat it for a year, and hopefully he can be good enough to get you back in the playoffs where you're 9-8 and you get smacked by somebody and whatever, like you've been doing. That's where you're at. And reality is you are doing nothing with Mason Rudolph.
No, you're not.
just not.
There's, and what did they get him towards the end of Big Ben's time?
Yeah, he was there at first. The first row was near the end of Big Ben, right?
And Ben was dealing with the injury, so he'd pop in and out. And the most significant thing he ever did was get conked on the head by Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett popped him on the skull.
He's proven time and time again he is not a high-quality NFL quarterback. So he's going to go out there. He can win you some games, probably going to lose you more games. They're going to throw picks, and just you can't build around him.
Right, let me give you the formula. Here's what's going to happen. This is the Steelers right now. Let's say you have to ride with Mason Rudolph. All right. You'll fumble around a little bit at the beginning of the year, then you'll hit some little mini win streak, right, where you're winning with your run game and your defense and your special teams. And
you're winning all those games 13-10.
I was going to say they're like 3-2, 6-5, whatever. And everybody starts to build a little hope with the formula.
Yep.
And then you lose 4 straight.
Yep.
And that's really what's going to happen. You're going to probably end up, because, again, Tomlin is a very good football coach. You'll end up around 8, 9, 7, and 10, because the Steelers will never crater as long as Tomlin's a head coach.
No. And again, the quarterback play since Big Ben, even the last couple of years, Big Ben wasn't all that great, but, like, they found a way because organizationally they are one of the strongest in the NFL. They will find a way to win. But in terms of somebody that's going to get you to the playoffs and help you make a deep run, they don't have that.
Yeah, and I've said this because there are Steelers. I mean, I have buddies who are Steeler fans, and in Pittsburgh, there is that talk of, getting rid of Tomlin. No, here's why. And I mean, as a Ravens fan, I wish you would fire Tomlin.
Sure.
Do me a favor, fire Tomlin, and then you can take this collection and you can go 5-12. The Steeler front office has failed Tomlin regarding the quarterback position. And that has killed the Steelers. I mean, look what they have done despite their offense, despite their quarterback. Now, again, everybody will say, well, Tomlin's brought in offensive coordinators and make you scratch your head. Yeah, but Arthur Smith, if you give Arthur Smith the right pieces to fit Arthur Smith's offense, it can be a good offense. You've seen it.
Sure.
You saw it in Atlanta. We saw it in Tennessee. You give the guy a good play-action quarterback, a good weapon at wide receiver, and a good running back.
Yeah, he can
and
be
guess
fine.
what?
Yeah, he's fine.
Offense will be fine.
And again, when you knew Big Ben was coming towards the end of his time, if you drafted the right way and got a good quarterback that could have sat and learned for a year or two and then took over after that, we wouldn't be having this conversation because you'd have your guy figured out.
But instead, you screwed it up, and now you're just throwing
now you're waiting
crap
on,
against the
you're
wall.
waiting on Aaron Rodgers to pick you.
Right. The 40-some-year-old annoying human being who right now is sitting in a wooded hut somewhere eating tree bark. That's your guy.
You need that guy to say, yes, I want to play for you.
That's the guy that's going to save your season. All right, what's trending at 2? Get you caught up on former Gamecocks who are pitching prospects in Major League Baseball. We'll get you caught up on that next here on The Game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. All right, earlier we talked about this. Will Sanders, in case you haven't heard, former Gamecock right-hander. I said left-hander earlier. I just looked it up, and he's a right. I always want to. I think he's left-handed for some reason, and I don't know why. I always do that. But anyway, Sanders, the righty, drafted by the Cubs in the 4th round a couple years ago. Sanders has been promoted to AAA Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was doing this off the top of my head earlier.
What organization's he with, you said?
He's with the Cubs.
Cubs, okay.
Yep, he's moving up to AAA Iowa. Now, this year in Knoxville, I said Nashville earlier because I was doing it on top of my head. In Knoxville, in AA, 9 starts. He's been good, 2.64 ERA. Striking out a hitter an inning. His walks are down to 8 in 44 1/3 innings. His whip went from over 1.4 to a little over 1, like 1.03 is where he's at. So Sanders has been really good this year in his 9 starts in Knoxville. He will now move up to AAA Iowa, and he's been a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talked about this. Remember, he had the issues.
He had to sit out a couple series, see like psychologists.
Trying to get his head right.
It was all in his head.
Yeah, and so this year he's pitched really well as a starter. And obviously the Cubs are going to move him to AAA Iowa as a starter. Now, the other 2 guys who pitched on those squads with Will Sanders, I thought it'd be fun to see how they're doing. Jack Mahoney went in the 3rd round in 23, went to the Colorado Rockies. Mahoney this year, not going well. 7 starts, an ERA of 6.59. His whip is almost 1.7. Has struggled a bit, giving up a ton of hits, 35 hits in 27 1/3 innings. Last year, though, Mahoney in 17 starts was pretty good, 3.52 ERA in 17 starts and about a strikeout an inning, and his walks weren't crazy, 22, and that was A-ball in Fresno. So then this year, AA in Hartford has been a struggle for Jack Mahoney. Now, they skipped him over high A.
Mm-hmm.
They moved him right from A to AA this year, so we'll see if they move Mahoney back maybe to high A, and then if he does well, then go back to AA. But Mahoney struggled a bit at AA so far this year. And then Noah Hall. Hall went in the 7th round. Yeah, I got that. Oh, gosh, you got something right. In the 7th round to the Mets. And Hall this year, he's in high A in Brooklyn, 3.68 ERA, pretty good. 9 appearances, 8 starts, striking out about a hitter an inning, and ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
24 walks in 44 innings. So he's not giving up hits. He's only giving up 34 hits in 44 innings, but the walks are killing him, and that's why his whip's 1.31. So Hall's doing all right. Mahoney's having some struggles this year, and Will Sanders has been moved up to AAA Iowa. So there's your update for your Gamecocks.
Well, again, there's a reason that, the best of the best make it to the pros, and, some guys get stuck in the minors. So it's a process, and it's good to see that, Will Sanders is making his way, and we'll see what the other guys can do.
And like we talked about in the noon hours, look, Sanders, it was never arm talent. It's always been between the ears with Sanders. So he's pitching well, and now he's moved to AAA Iowa, and hopefully soon you'll see him in the majors. Ashley Chastain-Woodard, nice day for Coach Chastain-Woodard. She has been named the D1 baseball or D1 softball Coach of the Year.
Well deserved.
Makes perfect sense.
Again, you had a program that was good that, when you jump up from a place like Charlotte, G5, where she was having success, I don't think anybody expected a ton in year 1, and you almost kind of give a mulligan, right? Like, all right, she comes in, roster's kind of turning over. If, they don't make the tournament in year number 1, nobody's going to be up in arms about it. So to make the tournament, to host a regional, to be a top 8 seed, and come within 1 out of making Oklahoma seed in year number 1, exceeded everybody's expectations. So well deserved.
And then they got to go out and get a starting pitcher, a second baseman, an outfielder. They got to go out and get some pieces in the portal, but they have a nice core coming back.
Yep.
For next year, and they will be ranked in the top 15, top 10 in the country. So good for Coach Chastain-Woodard. All right, our big conversation today has been about the spring meetings in Destin for the SEC. We played some Greg Sankey comments through the show. I want to get to this, Dave, real quick, the Paul Feinbaum. Paul Feinbaum was asked on, Sports Center earlier today about this college football playoff model, and here's Paul's thoughts.
Yeah, of course it makes sense because we said this countless times on your podcast, Matt, how convoluted the system was that schools that did not deserve a home first round bye, getting one. And quite frankly, there's been a lot of criticism of the SEC and what Sankey said, but the SEC would have gotten 6 teams in the straight seeding model.
Yeah.
But right now, no matter what the SEC and the Big Ten say, Matt, the rest of college football is going to come after them because they really are concerned, deeply concerned, that they are going to be left behind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation we have all the time. Are the SEC and the Big Ten going to go, you know what we're going to do? We're leaving. We're going to go.
And again, when you ask the question of, well, why is the SEC and the Big Ten getting to make these decisions? Because the other conferences, the ACC and the Big 12, are afraid if they don't yield this power to them, they are going to leave. They are going to form the super mega college football conference of all conferences, and the ACC and the Big 12 are going to be left adrift with nowhere to go.
Right. They'll be the Avengers.
So it's one of those things. They are thankful for whatever food gets put on their plate.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like shut up and enjoy what we gave you.
Exactly. Be thankful we're allowing you to sit at the table with us.
Exactly.
Now, stay quiet.
Right. And by the way, you're not getting a good chair because you might not be here.
Exactly.
We'll give you the folding chair, the really bad, uncomfortable folding chair that makes your butt itch.
Right.
When you sit there for more than like 5 or 10 minutes, that aluminum steel feeling thing. But that's the reality of this. Is no one cares about what's good for the sport. They just care what's good for themselves, which that's what you're hired for, because that's the way this model has been built. So if you're Greg Sankey, you're like, I'm here for us. Mm-hmm. If you're the Big Ten, you're here for the Big Ten. And the Big 12 and the ACC are the same way. It's just, you ready? In the arms race that is college football, the SEC and the Big Ten have nuclear weapons, and the ACC and the Big 12 have squirt guns.
And I think there's almost an art to proposing a model that is so ridiculously tilted in the favor of the Big Ten, the SEC, to make them mad enough to say, there's no way we're signing off on this. Okay, well, we're just going to go do our own thing. Have fun. See you later.
And that's the thing, because, if you're the Big 12 and the ACC, when you first hear this, you look at these guys and go, seriously?
Yeah, like, you're kidding, right? No.
And then you find out they're not.
Yeah.
And then you find out they're so not kidding that you go, oh, God, we have to do this.
Yeah. And when you start pushing back, they're like, we tried.
And the Big Ten is really on this.
Yeah.
Because, last year, look, Oregon has become a really good football program. Thumbs up Big Ten. Penn State is what Penn State is under James Franklin. Then you have Ohio State, Michigan. And you're hoping Southern Cal gets their head out of their backside at some point and comes and joins you.
Sure.
But you think you're top heavy enough to always fill 4 automatic qualifiers. But you want those 4 because there's years you haven't really had 4. The SEC, and we played the Greg Sankey card earlier, Greg Sankey's like, wait a minute, if we just take 4 automatic qualifiers, there are going to be years we're going to screw ourselves over.
Mm-hmm.
But your first thought all the time is we want 4. That way we know we got 4.
Yes, guaranteed.
Right. So I think as asinine as it is, and I don't like it, the only thing I like about it, we had this conversation last hour, is it takes the College Football Playoff Committee out of play for the most part.
It becomes very straightforward, like, hey, if you want to make it in the playoff, be in this top 4 or top 6 to at least play your way in. It's very straightforward. Here's the line, get above it.
So at the end of the day, if the SEC and Big Ten really want it, they're going to get it. And that's just the reality of it. But since we've sat here and do what we always do, criticize everything about college football, reseeding, they did something smart. God love them. They did the right thing. Way to go.
It looked like they weren't going to do it because we heard through so much of the offseason, I don't know, it's probably not going to happen. And then they finally changed their mind. So props to them for finally doing something that made a lot of sense. Now, again, the structure of how you get into the playoff is still the same, so it's not like a new team would have gotten in last year based on this. It would just been seeded, differently.
Change the matchups.
The seeding also benefits the SEC and the Big Ten because guess what? They would have occupied all 4 of those top seeds and gotten byes instead of Arizona State and Boise State occupying 1 apiece.
Right. Let's grab real quick, Dave. We will speak of the College Football Playoff Committee. Let's get cut 6 from Greg Sankey. What kind of faith does he have in the College Football Playoff Committee crew?
No, I don't think wins and losses are outside because there's 2 sides to that coin, right? I think there's been so much effort to get to the point of 12 that the continual evaluation of how are we making decisions got pushed in the background. And the way I look at last year, the learning experience was, it used to be the argument about the top 4. That was it. I'm 5th or I'm 6th and I'm angry. Now you had last year and the year ahead, you have the top 4 with byes. It's a big deal. You have the next 4 that play home games. That's a big deal. You have the next 4 that are in. And then you have the next 4 who are out. And we had raised the issue when we talked back in 21 as a working group about, how do you adapt some of the criteria? I think the only thing we did is pull out conference championships when you have teams on the margin. So how do you look at strength of schedule? What does that mean? We should be able to contextualize that better. That doesn't mean that it's everything, and so that's a little bit of the wins and losses pieces, because you can have the strongest schedule and go over, and that's not going to put you in the playoff. So what's the balance, and what's the recognition of rigor that has to be fully considered?
Yeah, look, there's 2 things also going on here that we haven't gotten to yet today. One is, and we did a little bit on the strength of schedule. I just think if you're playing tougher opponents, that's got to be factored into all this.
Sure.
It just has to be. It's not, not to pick on Indiana and SMU, but now I'm going to pick on Indiana and SMU. It's just the idea that your schedule did not stack up to others. And the idea that last year, it mattered until it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, well, gosh darn it, look at their record. And I don't know. I get the undefeated. Sure. I understand when you see a 0.
Yeah, okay, you beat everybody.
You beat everybody, even though you played a lot of nobodies. You beat everybody that was a nobody. But there's got to be a factor in here on the idea that playing a tougher schedule needs to mean something somehow in this whole thing.
And there's got to be a different metric. We use strength of schedule, which is based on a ranking of, 1 through 136 for how many FBS teams. But Sankey even brought it up the other day that, you can play the number 1 team and then the 135 team, and your strength of schedule is the same as if you played 65 and 66.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot of holes you can poke in that. There's got to be a different way to assess how strong your schedule is without just numbering it that way.
I don't know if you just change it to, like in college basketball, they also look at what you did against the top 50 or the top 100.
Well, again,
whatever.
we have quadrants, right?
Right, they have so you could do that in college football with, how many top 25 teams did you play? How many top 50 teams did you play? And that kind of can, for your loophole, that can start to close the loophole a bit.
Sure.
But yeah, you got to come up with a different metric. But and like we talk about, I think it was last hours. Okay, you can even separate it. What is your conference strength? Because sometimes your strength of schedule has been built up on your conference, but your non-conference strength of schedule is crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So maybe you have, you also break it down even deeper to your conference strength of schedule, your non-conference strength of schedule, and things of that nature. But I just think playing tougher teams needs to matter somehow in this thing. Now, again, if you're 8-4 with a tough schedule, tough.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at teams with similar resumes and similar one-loss records, the idea one team played tougher opponents has to matter in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
J.D. Piquel talking about Linares Sellers. We'll get to that next here on the Halftime Show. What's trending at 2 on the game? We are cooking what's trending at 2 here on the game. And what's trending is talking a ton of football today. J.D. Piquel from 0-3 was talking about Lenore Sellers on his podcast. And here's what J.D. had to say about the South Carolina starting quarterback. Hit it, Dave.
I mean, y'all, we've bought all the Lenore Sellers stock there is to buy. We've purchased everything but the action figure, which I'll just say this. If they can lower that price point a little bit, maybe we'd be able to make something shake there. But the question around South Carolina and the big reason why we have him in the college football playoff, it's all about Lenore Sellers, right? Does he have the cape on that he had on last season? Because there were games you turn it on, it's like he shouldn't be able to do what he's doing. He shouldn't break 18 tackles against Clemson or against A&M, and he just ends up doing it, ends up taking over the game. When he is on, he being Lenore Sellers, South Carolina can play with and beat anyone on their schedule. That's a big statement. I'm not backing down from it because I think he's that good. And I think he's that good because we've seen him be that good. We've seen him take over games where South Carolina isn't at this talent advantage against different rosters. Doesn't matter because 16's on the field and 16's going to make sure he takes over, and that's kind of how this whole thing goes. So I'm a big believer in South Carolina and Lenore Sellers for that reason. So the question is, okay, like how often does he have the cape on? Is that something where he just keeps the cape on from September to November and South Carolina's in Atlanta and then the college football playoff? It's possible. Absolutely possible.
Yeah, I mean, I get where J.D. Piquel's going because when you watch Lenore Sellers last year, I mean, the Texas A&M game, hell, Aggie should have had 8 sacks. They couldn't get Lenore Sellers to the ground. Sellers would just, escape and go make a big play. You saw it in the Clemson game. You saw it against Missouri with his arm. I mean, there were games where Sellers just made these plays where I got to rewind that because there's no way that just happened. But it did. So to J.D. Piquel's point, if Sellers is that guy consistently through the upcoming season, that's special, and that could be the kind of thing that pushes the Gamecocks into the college football playoff. I mean, every team's got question marks. Every team's losing players, whether it's NFL, the portal, whatever. But if you got a guy quarterback who is out there just doing just vile stuff that makes you shake your head and go, that's not human.
Yeah.
In the world we live in college football, that is a huge thing.
And for an offense that we do have questions at wide receiver, questions at running back, if the main running back's going to be eligible or not, questions at the offensive line. You got questions everywhere.
There's one place you have a question.
For quarterback. So
right.
You almost put your faith in saying, okay, you're going to figure the other things out, and his level of play can hopefully make everybody around him better.
Because what you're saying is, okay, that last, right after the Alabama game.
It was the back half of the season.
When he really got it going. You're banking on him being that guy all season in 2025.
Yes. Now, you obviously hope the players around him do their part, and if you can get better blocking for him to where he doesn't have to duck 8 sacks in a game, phenomenal. That's great. If you get receivers that can get open and make some tricky catches, wonderful. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see.
Right, and we hope that Mike Shula doesn't overthink the room as the offensive coordinator.
And again, he's talked about it. You're trying to make him a more refined passer. Now, we don't want to completely take his legs out of it, which was people's concern in the bowl game. Like, hey, why is he not running as much? Like, you don't want to go 180 degrees in the other direction.
Right. Exactly. You want him to play instinctively. But that instinct is with preparation and practice and all the other things that go into what Lenore Sellers has to do. You hope instinctively he gets that sweet spot between when it's time to break away from the pocket and make a throw, or stay in the pocket and make a throw, or break away from the pocket and take off with his legs and do damage. It's a learning experience and a learning process for all guys who have that multiple skill set. And you just hope that in 2025 he locks in that instinctive way to play the position where, he's going to hang in the pocket and make a throw. Or, okay, I got to get out of the pocket. Now I'm going to roll out, keep my head up, make a throw down the field for a big gainer. Or I'm getting out of the pocket. I looked up. Oh, my God, I see a lot of green. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take off and run.
Right.
And that is really where this thing is going. And you want him to be able to be that guy instinctively. It felt like watching the bowl game. A part of that was, remember, Illinois had like 19 guys spying him. Let's not forget that.
Yep.
But the other part is, it did feel like Sellers was trying to really make an effort to stay in the pocket.
Sure.
And like you said, that's not good either. because this guy has a special physical skill set that if he gets outside the pocket and he takes off, not only forget the green grass for a minute, there are guys he makes look like fools when they try to tackle him.
Yep.
He has got some serious, serious ability when he tucks the ball. But, you know, you want to take that away. I get you do. You want to make him a better passer, more efficient passer, and all those things, but you also want to make sure that he's using everything in the toolbox. And if he can be that quarterback where he's instinctively just tearing folks up with his legs and with his arm, in the world we live in, and look at the SEC, we said 5 quarterbacks are returning in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
If you can play to the level everyone is hoping you'll play to, that gives South Carolina such a leg up in this thing because other teams are all breaking in new quarterbacks. You have 11 teams in this league with new quarterbacks.
By the way, he's going to be going head-to-head with a lot of really good quarterbacks this year. Nussmeier, Klubnik, John Mateer is supposed to be really, really good coming in to Oklahoma from Washington State. I know his pro prospects aren't high, but Diego Pavia obviously set the world on fire last year with what he did at Vanderbilt. You're going to have some pretty compelling quarterback matchups that, you know, the Lenore Sellers is going to be one half of.
All right, we're doing What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Tristan's Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Real quick, Dave, let's grab cut 13. I think this is something we've kind of gone back and forth about constantly. Here's Greg Sankey talking about what's good for the Southeastern Conference versus what's good for the sport of college football. Hit it.
Look at a track record. We didn't need 12. Had we stayed at 4, we would have had half the 4 last year. I don't need lectures from others about good at the game. I don't lecture others about good at the game. And coordinating press releases about good at the game. You know, again, okay, you can issue your press statement, but I'm actually looking for ideas to move us forward. So, Ralph, I'll go back and say, I thought the 12-team design was really well considered at the time. We never had a unanimous vote to support the 12-team playoff. So even though I was involved in that work, that didn't mean everybody in this league, when we were at 14, thought it was the best idea. But you engage in that type of problem solving. You know, our 8 or 9 game schedule, that goes back to really 2018. We've been talking about eliminating divisions from 2018 forward, and we expanded. So it became a different conversation, and the shape of that conversation has changed over time. We have to make a decision. The CFP and my colleagues have to understand there's something different here. We all play college football. And so while you ask that of me, I'll go back and say, we didn't need a 12-team college football playoff. I thought it was good for the game. I was involved in that. Others held it up. I thought it was important to get after that work in a time-efficient manner, yet we held up, and then we went fast. We didn't go slow so we could go fast. We didn't do anything, and then we went fast without solving some of the other elements. I think I have a responsibility to push as well. I think my membership has a responsibility and the desire to push me. And that is a hard issue. If you want to go inside what it's like to sit in this role, I think about the responsibility I have here, and I think about the responsibility more broadly all the time.
Okay. That was a word salad. Basically, he's saying, look, if I went with what was good for college football with the 12-team playoff, 4 was good for me.
Yep.
Because we were going to have half of the 4 if we would have stayed with the 4 model last year. I get that in theory, man. But look, let's face it. You expand to 12 teams, you think you're going to get about at least 4.
Yeah, sure.
And then you got 3 because the way the seeding went down or whatever the case. And so you went to 12, not go, well, you know, this might screw us over in the SEC, but I'll fall for the good of college football.
It was a case that benefited you, but also benefited the rest of college football as well. And that you can feel like, hey, I was in support of this. That helped out the game, right? But we really kind of know what motive A was for that.
Sure. And why do you think, you know, the other things you want? You look at reseeding, that would have helped the SEC. You go to 16 teams, that's going to help the SEC. You know, you're batting the auto bid thing back and forth because what is best for the SEC? It's okay, man.
Right.
It's all right. Greatest day in the history of the world, May 28th. We'll get into that next here on the Halftime Show in the Game. All right, the greatest day in the history of the world, May 28th, where we let you know what has been happening on the greatest day in the history of the world. We got not as old school. Yesterday we had one from the 1800s when you weren't here.
I think Elijah and I beat it with I think we had a 1700s.
No.
Yeah, it was oh God.
Was it like duel? Was that the duel with
I think it was it was
Alexander Hamilton?
It was
Aaron
something.
Burr?
It was like bare knuckle boxing.
Bare knuckle
but it was from the 1700s because we had to look up what you wore to box in the 1700s. So unless you can beat that, we still hold the record.
Not going to beat that one. This one won't. 1956. I'll go 1946 real quick first. The Yankees beat the Washington Senators 2-1. First night game in the history of Yankee Stadium, this day in 1946. Because night games were never happening.
Yeah, they just had dudes sitting up on the top of the bunting holding lanterns. Yeah, that's how they led Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, or then after a while, be like, "Oh, everybody, pull your car up.
Yeah,
turn the lights on.
Shine the lights.
Shine your lights."
It is interesting how, light technology was back then. Because you look at a Williams-Brice Stadium now, and the lights just flood the entire thing, and that's actually impressive. This wasn't around 70 years ago.
No, it was not. 1956 on this day, Dale Long of the Pittsburgh Pirates hits a home run in 8 consecutive games. It's still a major league record, I do believe. And again, was Dale Long, Dale Long obviously a dude with power, but if you think about all the great power hitters in the history of baseball, Dale Long.
Name doesn't get brought up.
Yeah, exactly. 8 consecutive games.
Well, he had a nice little streak in the middle of the season.
Yes, he did. Matter of fact, and I should have done this before, and I did not. And that's 1956 for Dale Long. So you're like, wow, 8 bombs in a row? That's a year, right? This guy must have had a great season in 1956. And Long in 1956 ended up with 27 home runs, which was a career high. He only hit over 20 homers. He hit over 20 homers 4 times in his career.
Is that stars? That mean he was an all-star that year?
Yeah, he was an all-star, and he was 26th in the MVP voting. So Dale Long, not like an iconic career. He was he had power, but he wasn't like, you think of the great power hitters of the era, you weren't thinking of Dale Long.
Sure.
But 8 straight in 1956.
Well, a third of those home runs coming in that one stretch.
This was a dark day for baseball in the city of New York. The National League approved the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Giants move west in 1957. Obviously, they became the LA Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. Because think about this for a minute. Up until that moment, you had the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Giants, and the New York Yankees all in the city of New York.
Yep.
Run that one by you. Obviously, the Dodgers were in Brooklyn.
What did the Mets came along after that?
The Mets were in 62, I believe.
Okay, all right.
After those 2 teams left, it was just the Yankees. Then the Mets were in expansion. I believe 62, the expansion year for the Mets, to put a second team in New York. But at one point, 3 teams were in New York.
Wow.
And then the expansion out west. Because, again, it doesn't take a genius to go, you got a really big city in L.A., a really big city in San Francisco. We should have baseball teams there.
Sure.
I think before that, and watch this for a minute. I'm going to try geography. This is going to be ugly. I think the team farthest west in Major League Baseball was the St. Louis Cardinals. Before the expansion to California.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because I think every other team past that came along in the year since.
Yep. So a big day today in 1957 in Major League Baseball. Oh, I'm going to get you. Here we go. Don't look over here.
All right.
In 1978, this driver became the 5th driver to win his 3rd Indy 500. He beat Tom Sneva by a little over 8 seconds.
Let me go with Al Unser.
Look at you. You're ridiculous. Yes, Al Unser. Didn't his brother Bobby win it 2 or 3 times? Win the Indy 500 2 or 3 times?
I think so. I think that sounds right.
And his uncle Uncle Woodrow?
Yeah. The whole Unser family, the Foyt family, the Andretti family, they all had a lot of success there.
Didn't Mario win the Daytona 500?
Yes, he's one of...
The only one ever to do it, right? Daytona and Indy?
I believe Foyt did as well.
Did Foyt do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, those names, a lot of success at Indy.
1994, Dave Winfield passes Rod Carew on the all-time hit list. Dave Winfield, I don't think we appreciate how good Dave Winfield was. he went to the Yankees in his career kind of, because again, Steinbrenner basically called him out in the media, and they didn't win. That was that era when the Yankees weren't winning, and Winfield was brought there to win because Winfield could pitch and play all the positions.
Yep.
But Winfield was, he had over 3,000 hits. He obviously first ballot Hall of Famer. In his prime, excellent defender. But I feel like we just never, when we talk about great all-around players or great players of even that generation or era, no one ever says, don't forget about Winfield.
Yeah.
And by the way, he could have played in the NBA because he went to the University of Minnesota. And he obviously played baseball, but I know he played basketball. And I don't know if he played football or not, but there was talk about him also, I think, being drafted in the NFL. I can't remember. He had the opportunity to play in those 3 pro sports because he was such a great athlete.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a great basketball, but he was good enough basketball player where they're thinking about could he play in the NBA.
Yeah.
Winfield was a hell of an athlete. That was 1994. Dave Winfield passing Rod Carew 15th on the Major League Baseball hit list. And Rod Carew's another guy no one ever talks about anymore. He was a great hitter in his generation. I'll give you another one real quick. Okay, 1995.
All right.
Who wins the Indy 500 in 1995?
That's the only context I get.
Let me see. He was Canadian, and he beat, and let's see, fellow Canadian Scott Goodyear was penalized for passing the pace car. You can get that. Now you get it.
Jacques Villeneuve.
Look at you. How do you pass the pace car, dude?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
I saw Jacques Villeneuve when he raced in NASCAR for a few years. He's one of the most successful just across all of motorsports. Won an F1 championship, Indy 500. NASCAR thing didn't really work out well for him, but yeah, he's done a little bit of everything.
Great NHL goalie Patrick Waugh retired on this day in 2003. Waugh was just filthy how good he was between the pipes. I think the last time Montreal won the Stanley Cup, Patrick Waugh was the goalie, if I'm not mistaken, back in 1994. On this day in 2006, a record nobody recognizes except one guy. On this day in 2006, Barry Bonds hits his 715th home run to pass Babe Ruth, 714, and eventually Barry Bonds will pass Hank Aaron to become the all-time home run leader. And no one really wants to ever get Barry Bonds the props because, look, the funniest part is Bonds. Look, we all know this guy roided up like nobody's business.
Sure.
The guy had a head growing out of his back, for the love of God. But he never tested dirty.
Yep.
Ever. And by that account, he legitimately has the all-time home run record. But because, A, we all know the dude was doing steroids, and B, he was a miserable human being, no one wants to give him.
Yeah, we just all collectively pretend it didn't happen.
I mean, he's the stories of how unlikable this guy is unbelievable.
And for how big of an ego he had, for the collective public of baseball to just ignore those accomplishments, that's got to drive him insane.
It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. This day in 2011, Novak Djokovic, another guy a lot of people don't particularly care for, extends his perfect start to the tennis season at the French Open. 40 straight victories to start the year. Djokovic, his 40-0 start to 2011, the second best opening streak in the Open era, which started in 1968. All right, and Djokovic who will go down right now once he hangs up the racket as the all-time leader in majors victories. And on this day in 2020, finally, the Boston Marathon canceled for the first time in its 124-year history. Race originally was scheduled for April 24th, being postponed for 5 months because of COVID.
Yep.
All right, that's the greatest day in the history of the world. We'll get back in here. We will do our handoff with the post-game show, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. That is next, and get our Firehouse Sub Text the Hour on the halftime show on the game. All right, our Firehouse subtext of the hour. We'll get that first in our handoff with Elijah Campbell from the postgame show, getting you ready for what we'll be doing 3 to 6 here in the game. What do you got there on the text machine there, pal? Or no, you went Twitter.
Well, we're going to go tweet today.
All
Marv
right.
hits us up at Nonstop Gamecock, talking about, obviously, the chaos that is figuring things out in college football. Rest of the SEC says might as well make it 20 and end the conference championships. That's where it's headed. In 10 years, it'll all be a pre-pro league anyway. You're probably not wrong, for being honest. The way things are going right now, that seems to be what we're snowballing towards.
Yeah, I mean, look, Marv, you ain't wrong, and that's where it's going. And look, at the end of the day, everybody's being dragged around by their short hairs by bags of money.
Yep.
And that's all this is. And you're going whatever the TV networks say. College athletics is good, and really professional sports too.
That's my thing. Is let's say we do get to this, pro league
Super
type
League?
of thing, Super League with the SEC and the Big Ten. You don't think ESPN's going to throw gobs of money at that? Oh my God, we get the best teams playing each other in a 40-team pre-NFL developmental league. Sign me up. We'll pay for that.
I will zig while others zag here. I think that'd be a terrible product.
I'm not saying it's going to be a good product,
but when the product goes bad, no one wants to pay for it anymore.
The thought of it would create a lot of interest.
Oh, they'll get tingly over the money, but no. To your point, Elijah, here's the thing:
such a bad product.
No one's saying some of this is good. That's the ironic part of this.
Yeah, the warning signs are everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought this up. You saw it on Reddit or whatever. And I thought it was very interesting. Just for a thought exercise, NASCAR in the 90s was cooking, right?
Sure.
You had Earnhardt, you had Gordon, you had all those things going on. The ratings are going up. They're expanding to different tracks. Oh, let's go to Texas and California. Hey, I got a great idea. Zimbabwe. What the hell?
Sure.
And but then what did they do?
They changed
They looked at North Wilkesboro and gave them the middle finger. They looked at Darlington temporarily, gave them the middle finger. Rockingham.
And it was a sport that was very simple in concept in terms of how things were done, point structure, all that kind of stuff. And it's very complicated now, and that's drove a lot of people away. And it's one of those things that once you start making changes, it's very hard to undo those changes.
And what are you chasing at the time, too?
Yeah, you're chasing money.
Lots of money.
You're chasing that theoretical person that wasn't watching at the time that you think's going to watch that never happened. And again, college football is kind of that same way of like, hey, we're already cooking right now. They're not going to stop watching. And again, I think college football, in a way, college sports in general, are a lot stronger with their fan bases than other sports because you have the built-in thing of, hey, I went to the school, my whole family's gone there, I've gone to games since I was a kid. It's harder for people to pull away from college sports, but it's not impossible.
Now, why do you think the product, you said you think you're going to zig when everybody's zagging. Why are you zagging and zigging or zigging or zagging?
Because we already have our first warning sign, and that was that this year's national championship game did not eclipse any of the previous, decade and a half?
Yep.
And it's not just as the playoff, it's that you've already pushed this thing to where we're playing a title game near the end of January when the NFL is in their playoffs. Now you're pitting yourself up against the most important part of the NFL season, and we've already learned. I think, Tyler and I weren't around for the original USFL, but what was the USFL's cardinal sin that ultimately
they wanted to switch from spring to fall.
They wanted to go from spring to fall, and they pitted themselves up against the NFL.
And that was a national championship game with Ohio State and Notre Dame, two of the biggest brands in the sport.
This wasn't Youngstown State and Drexel, right? Like, this was Ohio State and Notre Dame. I don't think Drexel does, but it was Ohio State and Notre Dame, and it still didn't capture the nation's attention. Like, we have a scheduling issue. We have it's overcomplicated.
It wasn't enough of a dip that catches people's attention, unfortunately.
You know what I think it was?
It does it again, and it's a trend.
I think there is a thing here where I think it dragged out so long, fatigue set in. You've got to figure out the schedule for this thing because that was the clunky part of it. To your point, I think everybody got to the end and go, oh, God, we're at the end.
Half of us forgot the game was that night.
Right.
Like,